Hello, everyone. This is Yu Tsai. Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk. What an amazing week it has been. We've been dedicating this week talking to female women photographers in the industry, spanning from fashion to wildlife biologist, photographer, and I want to introduce you to her on Friday. And yesterday we talked to Anamika, who is amazing, who's been in the industry for 30 years. And today is such a diverse contrast. I'm so excited for you guys to meet my guest today because she's only been in the industry for a very short time, but she made big waves as she came into the scene. So everybody, this is Kat Irlin.
Hello, everyone.
Well, Kat, thank you for joining me today. I am so happy to have you on this show. You have been making so much wave on the internet and your beautiful work. So we're going to get to know you and about your work because you're one of those guys who just pop up in the scene that everybody went, who is this girl? Oh my God, this work is beautiful. Well, take us through a little bit of journey. How did you get into photography?
Sure. So thank you for having me. So yeah, I've been doing photography, as you said, not too long. I mean, it seems like a lifetime, but it hasn't been that many years. So yeah, originally, so I came to the U.S. From Russia back in '94 with my family, and then I studied finance, and then I worked in finance for about 11 years.
Wow.
And I've always loved photography, and it's always been a passion. Growing up in St. Petersburg, Russia, where it's very culturally diverse and beautiful architecture and theater and ballet, I've always been super visual, I guess you could say. And so after being in finance for so many years, I was getting really sick and tired of it and just really restless. And then I sort of picked up a camera, started shooting, and I started an Instagram account. Probably about 8 years ago or so now, and I started just taking photos first with an iPhone and started getting really positive feedback from people, and I was like, why don't I try this? I've always loved it, maybe I could make this into something. And so
Well, did you not just make it into something? You made it into 1 million fans loving you and more every day. And I want to touch a little bit upon when you first started, because you are the new generation of photographer for me, and that you started at the right wave where the technology started to change. And I know when Instagram first came out, a lot of photographers, including me, myself, was really concerned that photography was going to change its vocabulary.
Mhm.
Everybody's worried about, oh, that's an Instagram photographer. We don't pay attention to that. Well, guess what, guys? Pay attention. Because it's not going anywhere. In fact, it's getting stronger and even better. Once that we got all from the initial shock, what Instagram's supposed to do and what it can do, the one that embraced it has really benefited from it. And I too have benefited from that because we know that the fans are people who love your work and they support your work. And in turns, it gives you the confidence and build and continue to do what you do. So I want to know, when you first started shooting, what was it, the subject matter that inspired you the most?
When I first started shooting, it was mostly architecture. I mean, New York has always been a big influence to me. I think it comes across in my photos. So when I first picked up the camera, it was, just the beautiful architecture, the streets, the buildings, sort of always very moody.
And they don't talk back.
I mean, I still do that a bit. Like if you
But they don't even talk back to you. They don't complain.
Yeah. I still love that. I mean, I do it from time to time. There's just not enough, I guess, time now. I mean, or, logging around a camera everywhere is not as easy. I don't know. But yeah, I've always loved architecture. It's always been a big, muse to me and a big inspiration. So that's sort of where I started.
And did you find iPhone photography intimidating at the time when you first started? Because I know you were definitely from iPhone generation of embracing the technology. How was that for you when you first started taking picture and that process stopped posting it? And and both you and I know that the buzz out there is, oh, that's not real photography. How did you overcome that?
I mean, getting started with what I did, taking photos of buildings, it worked fine. But as we know, iPhone has only a certain type of capability. I mean, it doesn't really translate a mood or a feeling because it's missing the depth of field, etc. So although now I guess you could do that with the portrait feature, but still, it's just not the same. I don't think you can create the same type of feeling with an iPhone. But at the time, I mean, for me, I think it served its purpose. And then, once I started doing sort of bigger and more interesting projects, it just sort of evolved naturally into using a camera.
Well, it's interesting that even as you evolve and switch over to the camera rather than using a digital phone, that your work remained the same. Your point of view did remain the same. And for those of you guys that's not the 1 million followers already that wants to know her work, it's gorgeous. It's Kat in New York on Instagram, and your picture resonates in this poetic way that a lot of photographers spend all their life trying to achieve. It has this romantic quality that remind me of Sarah Moon back in the days, and it remind me just, even Nan Golden, how she looks at a beauty of a woman. And that fascinated me. When I first saw your work, it was undeniably, it was from a women's perspective. Did you purposely, or did you had a point of view when you went into photography?
No, I really didn't. I think it was, I mean, and I get asked this question quite a bit. It's sort of where I get my inspiration, or where does the vision come from. I think it's just, again, sort of growing up in St. Petersburg, in this very sort of gray city that is really beautiful and full of inspiration. I think that's shaped my vision and the way I see it.
Mm.
I think that's why I have this sort of moodier point of view. And I think um, the romantic vision, and I guess female perspective, it just comes naturally. So what I think is beautiful is, is the photo. What's in my head is basically the what the photo is going to be. So
Well,
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like in a lot of images that you take, it's truly almost a reflection of you, because you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, and I've seen lots of your interviews, and I see how you speak, how poised you are, and in some way, it really echoes through your photography, especially in the earlier work. I felt like you were doing a bit of a self-portrait. It's almost like a study, and you took images that lives on its own, stays on its own, and you can really look into it and rest and really study it, because there were so many nuances. I really felt like it was a study of who you were. Is that part of the vocabulary that you were trying to communicate?
Um, Maybe in a way. I mean, to me, maybe. I mean, in a way, to me, a woman's body is beautiful. So whether it's myself or another subject, and not that I claim to be a model, in any way or anything, but to me, a woman's body is beautiful. So whether it's myself in front of camera, or whether it's another female, it's equally as, as interesting, or as inspiring to me.
Well, I know that when you broke into the scene, that a lot of models started contacting you directly outside of the agency, because the agency didn't know you. And I'm wondering that, did you struggle to find models and subject to branch out of your friends? Because in the beginning, I know you were shooting a lot of your friends, and then the models start to come. What was that process like? And did you fight with the agency to get models that you want to work with?
Actually, it was interesting because I came into a totally new industry and literally knew no one. I mean, it's basically that, like a leap from one thing to a totally new thing. So I didn't have any friends, and I mean, I was lucky enough that because of the following, even back then, people, everyone's looking to enhance their following and increase their following. So I was lucky enough to be able to get some models that way. But of course, it took the time, certain amount of time to be able to get the really great talent, because you have to everything, you have to prove yourself, and you have to gain the confidence. And this industry is interesting, because it's all about, I don't know, yeah, it's the confidence.
Earning your stripe. I think what we
Yeah.
in this industry, that in our industry, for guys who are listening that's not in the industry, truly, that nobody likes anybody who pops out of nowhere and becomes
Yeah.
successful, because they feel like there's no way you should ever earn that. As a
Yeah.
photographer, I've always been questioned when I first started, who did you assist with? And when I used to say, I didn't assist anyone, I just started shooting on my own. And it was like, oh, then you must not be good, because you didn't assist anyone. But
Yeah.
those vocabularies and those times have changed, because the internet really has evolved and helped us evolve as different human beings and different visionaries. And you truly are, like, you are in history now for me, a true visionary and capturing women in such a unique way. And I love also when you shoot men too, because it still adds that femininity to it and the romantic quality. It's almost like I'm transported back to 1960s, and that there's something so poetic about it. And even it's such a unique style. And I'm wondering, to me, when I look at your work, I always think, do you purposely think about this style, adopt this style, and work in this style? Or what is it that makes you fall in love with this style?
Um, Honestly, I mean, it's hard to describe. I think it's just when I take the photo, I already see the final image. Like I know how, the post processing is going to look like, the color treatment is going to look like. So I think to me, most of it is the composition, and sort of like I was saying, when I press the button, I already know what the finished product is going to be. So it's sort of hard to explain the creative process. But that's usually the way it sort of comes to me.
But do you love old films? Do you love other work that's in that same genre? Is that what really inspires you? Because for me, I know that growing up in the photography world, like you, I was in a total different business sector. I was a wildlife biologist of all things. That photography was not something that I would ever think I would do. Even when I thought to be a photographer, I thought I would be shooting rabbits and dogs and animals. I didn't think I would be shooting. Well, you know what? Sometimes models are dogs and animals and tigers and crazy. Sometimes they don't listen, like little puppies. But I digress. Sorry about that. But when you begin to look at that journey, and you look back and see what influenced you, I think it's very interesting. But knowing that you came from a finance background, which is very meticulous and not everything has to be precise, it helps me understand your work even more, because then I understand why there's such a position and composition, and it's almost like you make sure you don't drop a zero in your finance document. You make sure that
Yeah,
you know
that I think I guess maybe it's the attention to detail.
mm,
Yeah, I think my previous career definitely helped, you know, what I am here today. And not to say I've achieved what I want to achieve, but sort of what I've gotten, the way I've gotten here, like the work ethic. People always ask, what do you attribute your success to? I mean, I think 90% of it is the hard work, and
amazing.
nothing comes to you magically. You definitely have to have the talent, you have to have the interpersonal skills, but I think the hard work and is a big part of it.
And we talk about that on the show many times with different photographers or different careers for people, that there are circumstances around us that shape us. And I particularly really started picking up photography because I was used to direct TV commercials, and the budget would be $6 million, $5 million. If you don't have that much money, that I wouldn't even be qualified to direct those commercials. I came from special effects directing, so you need a lot of money to do. But when September 11th happened in America, when that happened, it changed the whole dynamic of the world. Nobody wanted to do multi-camera work. Everybody wanted to do a singular camera, and they want people to look into the camera and smile. And my work was dark and it was moody, and I couldn't get a single job directing because I didn't have people jumping on trampoline and smile to be Macy commercials. And while Tony Kaye was one of the biggest director at the time, shipped over and started doing Macy's, when those are kind of jobs that usually I would do. And that's when I got scared, and I did panic. But then once I settled down, I realized, okay, I got to find another avenue to proceed. And when I jumped into photography, it was a time when film went to digital, before your time, when film went to digital. And I happened to catch that wave in the right time and the right moment. And that really did shape my career and help me. And I embrace that. I tell everybody that I came into the industry just at the right time. If I came in a month early or a month later, perhaps it would not take me to where I am today. And I see that in your work. You embraced it. You took a technology and you embraced it. And we know in our world in fashion, nobody like changes. they don't like disruptors. You are a disruptor. You know that, right? You are a disruptor.
I try to have my own vision as much as I can, because I think that's what, like yourself, that's what makes a great photographer. You look at somebody's work and you know who it is. So I think that's, the more you can have the personality, the more I guess you're gonna want to be hired for that particular vision.
Have you ever worried about this style would get stale for people who see this style for a long time and say, "Oh, I'm over that style. Let's move on." Because it's interesting, because we kind of, as photographers, go through that. We question our work all the time, and I'm curious on how you process that.
I guess not yet. It hasn't bothered me yet, but I could see how, yeah, like we were talking earlier, everything's cyclical and everybody wants a new thing and a new type of idea or angle or something. But honestly, I think the way I shoot is the only way I can shoot, because that's, to me, other things sort of feel unnatural and don't feel like me. Like I even have a tattoo here that says "Be true to yourself." So I try to, I try to always, stick to the vision that's mine. Even though now there's a lot of very bright imagery out there, and but I don't know. I just can't. I'd like to stick to what I am and what I know and what I'm happy with.
But however, your work will evolve, it will shape itself as time goes. Because I don't think that we ever evolve on a they call it punctual equilibrium, meaning that from here to here, you don't just jump from here to here.
Yeah.
As we evolve, we gradually evolve, like evolution does, right? And I think your work is probably changing day by day that you're aware of, and I definitely feel that about my work. And if I come from a different perspective in a way of what the clients need, what the environment need. If the environment is happy, I'll shoot happy. Perhaps I'm not as married to a style of, but however, I know I have one because it developed over time, and I could never do what you do, and then hopefully you can do what I do so you don't take my jobs, but 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 the fact is that narrative that you're creating, a lot of people are really embracing and loving, and I have to say, from the beginning, it really looked like an art project at first. It was like, oh, she's discovering, she's doing art, and she's using the tool to create the art. There were a lot of pushback, like, oh no, you shouldn't hire this person because it's not a real photographer. But the moment you had that breakthrough, when was that breakthrough? When all that stuff just doesn't matter and you start working with clients?
Honestly, I don't know. There was one particular moment. I mean, I think there was, it's hard to say. I mean, maybe there was a particular editorial, but I can't really put my finger to it. I think it was more like just a gradual process. There was not one turning point. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, let's hire her," So it's hard to say. Yeah.
But I can say this, from at least from an outside perspective, studying your work over the years, is that when your model choices started to change, and based on opportunity provided for you, and for guys, you guys are out there, photographers' career really do depend on the subject matter we get, and we don't just get to decide to shoot the Candace Swampos or the Gigi Hadids just because we want to. It's layers of agenting and layers of bureaucracy and what magazine they already shoot for, so you can't shoot them for this. But when you get the opportunity to work with the talent that is already at the level, that actually helps us as photographer to elevate our work. Doesn't mean it makes our work better. It just gives us a little nod and little blue click, if you may, on your certification, on your Instagram and on your Twitter, for those of you guys understand that vernacular. And that's really true, because we need that validation. So I saw that work change in you when the subject matter came in a different way, when you started shooting really well-known models. And that's when I knew at that moment that you were somebody to be reckoned with. People really need to pay attention, because they are giving you the validation. And I know for a fact those models didn't even check with the agency. They showed up because they loved your work. And that's really powerful, because nowadays, don't you feel the same, that you can reach out to models directly and say, here's my work, if you enjoy working with me? Maybe it was a check with your agent, but we really don't.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, I think it depends, what you're trying to do. And I think a lot of until you develop like a really good personal relationship with someone, I don't think they're going to go on a limb for you and shoot something with you that their agent wouldn't allow them, especially at the higher level. But yeah, well, if you have a personal relationship, it's always a positive.
Yeah, because that truly is. We get muses in our business, and I know that a lot of people who follows my work know that when I first really broke into the stratosphere of name that known in my work is when I really embraced Kate Upton as a model, and really loved empowering women with curves, and I started shooting even more sexier than I already shoot, because I was in that zone. What was that? It was any muse of yours that you would photograph all the time that really embodies your work?
I think there were different girls throughout the years that I tend to, I guess, when I find someone I really love, sort of stick with them for a bit. But yeah, there were certain girls, not necessarily really well known, but ones that inspired me a lot. And I would shoot with them for for a while, and a lot of the personal projects. Um, but yeah, I mean, I tend to, I guess, be try to be as loyal as I can to the people I love working with, and not it's not just the team, but the talent as well. Because certain people, as you know, just inspires you much more than others based on what vision you have, or what look sort of appeals to you. And with that, I think you can, the more inspiring someone is, the better the work you're going to create.
Well, who inspires you out there right now that you have yet to be able to photograph?
Oh my God, so many people. I mean, Gigi and Bella would be great.
They haven't shown up for you yet?
Oh, no, not yet. No, not
Wow.
yet.
Louisa IMG, if you're listening and watching, I think Gigi needs to go on her set. And and they love your work at IMG, just so you know. I had actually an earlier conversation about you, and because I did do my research. And they love your work, and they do love your point of view, what you bring to the table. And I think it's very refreshing. And you're right, a lot of the models that we all aspire to photograph is not always within the region. I grew up with Gigi Hadid as well. We shot many campaigns together, and now she's in the stratospheres of her own, and I can barely reach her myself. But you know what?
Levels.
They come back. I promise you. They come back. Tell me about the process of creating a story for you, because one of the things about your work, that singular image is really powerful in the beginning of your work, and it has evolved into a narrative. How do you begin to build story? How did you begin to take one image and begin to build a narrative, an entire story for editorial? Because I think it'd be very helpful for people out there who shoot with their phone still, how they can evolve into telling stories like you do.
Yeah, definitely. When you start out, doing sort of iPhone photography, or being an Instagram photographer, it's all about, like you were saying, all about the one image. But as you evolve and start shooting more, you realize it's much like writing a story. If you're a writer, people need to be able to see what's going on, and it's not just the one snapshot. So I think it's just a learning process. You have to be able to work with a team you love, and you have to figure out what is the vision, what is the mood, what is the styling going to look like, the location, the hair, the makeup, and it all has to be continuous, and it has to make sense. So much like I'm saying, writing a story, you have to come up with a narrative in your mind, and you have to stick to it. And again, the talent that inspires you, and the team that has the same vision. But it's a process. It's definitely a process.
Well, for a lot of people out there who want to be photographer, they always have to ask advice, like how do they study? How did you study?
Honestly, I didn't. I know I didn't.
That's why you're a disruptor. You know that, right? And I'm giving you a thumbs up for being disruptor, by the way. It's a positive word for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, maybe this is stupid on my part, but I've never studied, the technical part of photography, and I've never studied, I don't like looking at photography books or photography shows, because I try not to be inspired by other people's work, and that's the same reason why I don't really try not to follow other photographers on Instagram, because whether you want,
that's why you're not following me.
I'm following you. Whether you want or not, you I think you get inspired by the things you see, and it sort of gets into your head, and then not by choice, even, like you sort of start mimicking, or some lights, some poses. So I really don't want to do that. I want to try to make it my own as much as I can, and it's not an easy thing because so many things have been done. But that's the reason why I try to stay away from all that inspiration as much as I can, unless, of course, I need to come up with a mood board and researching all that stuff. But particular styles of photography or books or shows, I try to stay away from.
Well, that's very interesting, because I know that when I have opportunity to talk to young photographers at lectures or schools, when they ask me all the time, how do you study photography? And I think what you say is so important is this, that I always tell them to photograph buildings. I said, go look at architecture because they don't move, but you have to find the right angle to shoot them. So it's incredible that you actually did study photography in your own way. That it's the way that I actually believe. I don't think learning to shoot a woman means shooting women over and over and over. In fact, go shoot completely opposite. Go shoot a man over and over and over, and you will be able to shoot women in a different perspective. So it's not always the same. And shooting fashion for me, learning was actually shooting buildings and architecture, and that is something that I can 100% relate to. So by saying that you didn't have education, you actually have one of the best foundation of education.
Yeah.
However, I do disagree on looking at the work of other photographers just because I think it's just a mere paying respect and homage to the work that I've done. And a lot of it has to do for me is because in the industry, nothing's original. Everybody will reference your work. Just like, can you shoot more like Urban Pen? Can you shoot more like Abaddon? Whatever references that people may give you, you're always going to make it your own. And if you don't know that reference, it could become a hindrance to of communication. But you're not giving yourself enough credit for it. Being in the industry for 8 years, you have been infused into fashion. I see the stuff that you're shooting, that you understand clothes. You love clothes. I can see that through your work. Because I say this with most kindest words out there for you guys, but don't start sending DM and get mad at me. But I know a lot of straight photographers tries to shoot fashion, but they don't study the fashion designers and their perspective and clothes. And if you don't love clothes, guys, you cannot be a fashion photographer. I am so sorry, because you would not understand the nuance of the pli from Chloe to the embroidery of Gucci, how important it is for that season. Because if you don't understand the importance of that season, you would never pay attention to photograph them in the way that celebrates their work. So guys who are straight out there who don't like, who want to do fashion, turn on the feminine side and read fashion magazines and look at who designer and what they're wearing, because I think that really does help. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. You have to love the clothes. You have to understand it. You have to know what's the better angle, what's, which way it's going to make it more interesting to see, and at the end of the day, what's going to make people want to buy it. I mean, that's the way I sort of always see it is, what is the image I'm going to see that's gonna make me want to buy that Gucci dress or that Prada skirt or whatever. So that's always the way I try to shoot it, and also as much as I can give it my own perspective and like a spin. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's all about loving and knowing fashion and understanding it. Without that, there's no fashion story.
Because it's a complete picture. It just can't rely on the face of the person or the gorgeous body of the model you have that day, and you can do that on your own as a self-study. But if you want to marry the art and commerce, and you're the definition of that, right? The commerce part of the finance that you have been doing for 11 some years, and the arts that you're doing for 8 years or so, that they come together, they have a perfect, beautiful marriage. And I couldn't be more proud of you in the way that you've broken the mold in this industry, because I mean, I was one of those people who goes, how did she get 1 million followers? Oh my God, what did she do? and I looked at your work, and I had to study it, and I had to understand, okay, it's a point of view that you're giving that's at the right time of the world that we need. And it's so much of it, and I want to talk about, it's so inspiring for other women out there, how you're capturing women. And I don't know if that's a conscious thing that you're doing, but you celebrate women's femininity in a really just sensual, in a way so quiet that you have no choice but pay attention to it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I really think it's just the female perspective. I mean, like you're saying, men and women see beauty and sexuality and women's and men's bodies in a different way. I mean, and I think I shoot the way I see and what is beautiful to a female, or just celebrating a female body without, necessarily making it a sexual object, but more like an art form. So I think that's what I try to do. And same thing with men. It's just more about a body being an art form, and sculpture versus a thing you want to touch and.
Yeah. I'll think about that one for a little bit. No touching.
No touching.
No touch. But you might want to. It's okay. But no touching. No touching. But Do you feel now that because your voice is resiliently loud now in the industry and people begin to understand and many of us really do respect your work and stop categorizing you any longer, that we respect you just as the photographer capturing amazing, beautiful images from art and commerce? Do you feel now a little bit more responsibility to build your work that empower other women? Do you feel that pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think now in this day and age, it's all about, you know, being sort of strong, independent female, and trying to spread the body positivity as much as you can. I mean, I have two daughters, and
Wow.
and I mean, they look at my work and they love seeing women of different shapes and sizes, and to them, it's inspiring. And they're growing up in this time that's much more accepting of of different types of people. When I was growing up, you had to be skinny, and there was no other way. And my mom would stress that repeatedly. But now it's amazing because they're seeing all these images and ones that I produce where it's different types of women, and it's beautiful. You find the beauty in the different shapes and sizes. And I think it's really amazing to me, and I feel proud when they love my work, and it makes them more self-confident.
I love that your work is celebrating for your two daughters. You have two
Yeah.
daughters that
Mhm.
they get to see how you see the world and they get to learn from that. That's incredible. That's amazing, actually. That's because that's the best education you can give to your children, for them to see how you see the world. And you
Yeah.
definitely see it with such a kindness. There's something about your work that is so kind. And
Yeah. I
I know,
I
because sometimes people look at my work and goes, he must be a bitch.
I don't get that. I promise. I don't get that from your work.
Because I do believe photography is a projection of ourselves. Because for those of you guys who pick up the camera, when you look into that lens, it's actually a mirror looking right back at you. You're not aware of it, but that mirror clicks. It's what captures the image. As I always say this, without you knowing it, you actually are looking at your own reflection. And in fact, it's a true reflection. And if you want to take a right picture that's authentic, you truly are capturing part of your own spirit in that picture. And for some, do better than others. Kat does it very well. And I truly, when I got to meet you for the very first time today, and we got to talk a little bit before this live, what I
Mhm.
found is that you are truly authentic to your work as a person that you are. And that is so absolutely refreshing.
Thank you. I thank you. I try. Really try to be a good person every day, and I think kindness, will save the world, or has saved the world. And
Well,
I
I think
help.
continue to create what you create, and I'm so excited to see you continue to evolve. And you know what? And I'm gonna leave myself out there. Next time in New York, I love to get a portrait how you see
Of
me.
course,
I
I love.
think we can trade lenses. I love to photograph you. You can photograph me, because it would be a very interesting exercise
Yeah.
for us. And because I would love to see how you see the world, because I'm still learning through it. And during this time, during the pandemic, that we definitely have a lot of time of self-evaluation. And when I decided to do this talk this week for women photographers, I wanted to make sure I captured the spectrums of different photographers, from anybody like Anaminka, who's been working for 30 years, to Zoe Grossman, worked for 20 and then having a major breakthrough moment in the last couple of years. And you, the groundbreaker in your own right and what you do, I think that is what's most refreshing now about our industry. We're at the right time where subject matters are broader than ever. Like you
Hmm.
said, 4 years ago, people were looking at me as if I'm not a real photographer because I like to shoot curvy girls.
Hmm.
Now we're celebrating that. So we have grown.
Hmm.
5 years ago, taking a phone with taking a picture with your phone, it was not embraced. But guess what everybody is doing today, right now, when we
Hmm.
can't get close to people to take, they're now doing what you're doing. And in some ways, that is the validation. That's all the validation that you need for your work. And not that you need validation because you're confident and amazing at what you do. But we sometimes just want to look back and go, did I do a good job? Or is this the path I want to be on? So let's talk about that. What's the next path? What's the path that you want to be on?
I mean, to me, I want to continue working with the people that inspire me, and just continue doing bigger and bigger and more interesting things. But it all comes down to inspiration.
Mm.
Of course, I'd love to be shooting the biggest campaigns and
You
all
will.
the
I promise you. You
things.
will.
Thank you. But it has to make you happy, you know. I think that's the most important thing in any profession. That it can't always be the fact. Of course, we all have times and days when you know, we hate what we do. But if at the end of the day, like you were saying, if you can create something that will make a bit of a change, then this is, you know, it's all worth it. And you can go to sleep, you know, fulfilled. And if you can inspire you know, your kids, and they can be proud of you, I think that's, you know, that's everything. So
That is everything. I agree with you 110%. That is everything. To be able to inspire not just the generation of photographer that's here today, but the
yeah,
next generations of kids that's going to grow up with want to see the world you see it. That's really, really powerful, especially within the last few years of how much we have adjusted and changed and pivot to learn how to respect people on set. And I said that with a clearly of understanding on my own behaviors as well, that we all learn to adjust. And some of them probably was never crazy. I was a loud guy. I was always a loud one. I still like to be loud, but just adjust a little. But you know, and that's what's so fascinating for me now to see how photography is going to be after this. I'm kind of frozen in time for a little bit, and people begin to ask, "Hey, can you shoot over FaceTime? Can you shoot on Zoom?" Have you encountered that yet?
yeah. I mean, I've been doing some of that just because, for me, I'm a type of a person. I need to be busy. I need to be doing something. And so first, when this all started, you know, I was like lying on my couch for days, eating and drinking and watching, you know, Netflix, and I was getting so depressed. And then, you know, some people approached me like, "Do you want to shoot by FaceTime?" And I was like, "Why not? This is something to do, something to keep creative." And some people I know sort of condone it. They're like, "It's not real photography. It's not real art. It's just, you know, you're belittling photography." But to me, it's all individual. Some people, you know, you don't have to do it if you're not happy with it. But if you can, you know, allow you to be creative and inspired during this crazy time, then go for it. And there's no need to judge others and do it or not do it. I mean, I think that's such a stupid thing. So I have
Well,
yeah, done
you
some,
exemplify breaking rules. So if you're doing it, people better be watching and go, "This might be the new next thing."
and it is very limiting. I mean, I've had people, you know, ask me what's the difference between shooting live and sort of FaceTime. It's very, very limiting. I mean, you can't really capture a mood or a feeling in the same way as you can in person, and it's missing that, you know, personal
The connection.
yeah, exactly. But you can capture, you know, some interesting stuff. I think it's mostly interesting because of how you're doing it at what time. So it's gonna remind us later of this crazy, you know, time when we're, you know, stuck in our homes, but still had this outlet to allow us to be creative. So I think it's a great thing.
Well,
Um,
I am trying to embrace it as much as I can. There are a couple of productions that have asked me to approach that way. So obviously, we're trying to figure out a way to do things that's in a safe way. How do we get close to people that
right.
has been sanitized? And there are a lot of technical things to work out. But as artists, I celebrate every way, however you can, to find a way to express yourself. I find it on here on Instagram Live that I get to speak to people like you that inspire me, because this to me is part of my work and part of what I love to do. And I may not have a camera in my hand, but at least I get to be inspired by people who do and pick up, you know, and the way that you do it. I want to thank you so much for being here. I just want everybody to know that part of the initiative of being on the show, that you helped donated 500 masks to first responders in New York. And we've been doing this initiative for the last 12 weeks, and we have raised over 100,000 masks thus far. So for those, any of you out there wish to help, you can go to lifeletstalk.com to see the initiative and be part of the team of solving this crazy time that we're in. Help with the process. Just be kind. And if you don't want to donate, it's okay. Just pass the word on. We appreciate it.
Fine.
Yes, be kind. Be kind. Well,
Mhm.
I hope that you continue to do what you do. And I hope I get to continue to see you create poetry through whatever means of media you're doing, because I know that you're going to be unstoppable. Because if there's a new technology tomorrow, you'll probably pick it up and embrace it and start creating art in your own way. And I have to say, when I saw the Bloomingdale catalog, I know it's a catalog, but can I tell you, it was so refreshing to see a catalog that felt poetic all over again, and it told a story of a woman on the street, and it made me love photography again. You
Thank
really
you
have
so
done that for me.
much.
And that I don't think we say that enough from photographer to photographers these days. We're in a very competitive field. Everybody's worrying about their job being taken from others. And through this, I find that this is the time that you should really celebrate together of the work that we have done and champion each other for the future. Because I cannot be more proud and happy to be able to open magazine and see your name and see Zoe's name, see women's name, because it has been too long for this time to have happened. And because this is why people ask me, well, why are you celebrating women photographers so much these days? I go, because by celebrating them, I'm celebrating inclusion and I'm part of that solution. Because tomorrow, next day, maybe I will see more Asian photographers' name and I too will be able to benefit from their championing the way. You're paving road for so many different people. And I encourage African Americans, more diversity photographers out there, really tell story through your point of view. And you have a Russian background to finance background and telling a story in your point of view, it's bringing us joy and happiness. And that's a kindness that we need in this world. So I encourage other people to do the same.
Agree. I mean, to me, I think what goes around comes around. If you can do nice things and kind things for people, they'll come back to you. You know, the more kindness you can spread, let's all do it. Let's all, you know, unite.
Well, thank you for being so kind and being with me today and giving me this time. And I can't wait that we can continue to talk about creativity. And I can't wait to see the amazing stories that you're doing. And you know what? I know IMG is watching, and I know they are because I asked them to. and I'll be your first out. I absolutely that I would recommend any top models I have had chance to work with, and you're on my list as the top people who are truly. And I don't think people realize that because they're so scared, and that's the truth. People are afraid of the new, and you are the new, and I'm celebrating it with you.
Aw, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being with me.
Bye.